Hey y'all, Dina here, and welcome to Dina Indoors. Today I'm going to be showing you my budget NAS build. I decided to build this NAS after John bought a used tower on eBay and swapped out some of the parts to make his own build, leaving us with a bunch of leftover parts. We also had a couple of old netbooks lying around that we also took apart to get the hard drives out of. Between 4 different computers and 2 different users, we have accumulated a bunch of files. So this NAS allows us to have the redundancy we need with the amount of files we have, just in case one of our computers ever go down. The NAS will be a backup, that way we hopefully don't lose anything and we can just pick up where we left off. Let's get down to business. Starting with the motherboard, we bought a used Asus Mini ITX off of eBay. It took us a while to find this motherboard because we decided to use the old CPU from John's computer, meaning we needed to find a motherboard that was going to be compatible with this new CPU that we have. We also wanted a motherboard with a small form factor, which is exactly what this ITX gives us. It also has 4 SATA ports, it has dual slot RAM, and it also has 1 PCIe port. Next we have the CPU. As I mentioned earlier, we use the CPU from John's build. The CPU is an Intel i3-3120. It doesn't have a lot of computing power, but for a NAS, you really don't need all that much, so it went perfectly. Now, we could have easily just sold the CPU from John's computer and bought a different CPU, but we probably would have got like $5 for it on eBay. So what's the point of buying new when you can hopefully use your used part and it be compatible with what you're doing? Let's talk about the graphics card. That's right, this NAS build does not have a graphics card. It is not really a needed feature, and the CPU that we are currently using has integrated graphics on it, which makes it perfect for this build. Moving on to the RAM, there's really not much to say. We're using one stick of 4 gigabytes worth of RAM, and it's made by SK Hynix, not really sure how you say that. It was the last piece of John's computer that we put into this NAS. Now that we have some of the main components of this NAS, let's talk about that power supply. We wanted a power supply that was better rated yet budget friendly, which means we had to go with a non-modular power supply, and we went with the EVGA 500 watt power supply. Unless you have your face directly up to the NAS, you are not going to hear this thing. We keep it in our main living room where we are at all the time. You know, we're on the couch watching TV, doing whatever, and you don't know what's there. In total, we have 6 hard drives in our NAS, but our motherboard only has 4 SATA ports. So what do? That's easy. We went ahead and bought a PCIe SATA 2-port SATA 3 card. This allows us to have all 6 hard drives running at one time. Now, the PCIe has no embedded hardware for RAID, but it is compatible with Unraid, which is what we are using in this NAS. If you're not sure if what you have will work with Unraid, there is a link on their website and it shows all of their supported products, which is where we went to make sure the majority of our stuff would be compatible. And lastly, this is one of the cheapest PCIe cards that was compatible, so it was perfect for our budget build. Now that we have 2 extra hard drives and a motherboard that was only meant to have 4, where are we going to put them? Well, I'm glad you asked. We went ahead and purchased an Akasa PCIe mounting bracket, and it took forever, and I literally mean forever, to get here because of COVID. And we ordered it, and it probably came 3 or 4 months later. And looking at the tracking history, it was a nightmare because it actually shipped to our city. It said it was in our city, and then it went from where we live to Georgia to back here after being in LA for a copious amount of time. But it came from China, and it was really right after the coronavirus hit here, so it took way longer than all of our other parts did to get here. Needless to say, I quit looking at the tracking history because it just seemed like it was never gonna show up until one day there it was in the mailbox. And I was super excited because that was the only thing we needed to complete this build. Now, you've seen where we're storing the hard drives, how we're powering the hard drives, But what hard drives do we have? Now, again, because of COVID, some things were out of stock, so we have an interesting setup when it comes to our hard drives, including using hard drives from the netbooks like I had mentioned earlier. So we have a 2 terabyte WD Red, a 2 terabyte Seagate Barracuda. Now, those are our main parity drives. So if the other drives go down, that is going to be our backup for the NAS. We also have a 1 terabyte 2.5 inch Barracuda drive and a 1 terabyte 2.5 inch WD Blue drive. And then lastly, we have the 2 1 terabyte drives from the netbooks that I couldn't even tell you who the maker was. Now for the case, we went with Thermaltake's Core V1 Snow, and mainly it was because it matched the interior of our house. We are huge outdoor beach people, so the whole living room is beach themed, so the white case went perfectly. Now this NAS has 3 different fans on it. First we went with the Cooler Master i17C, and it is RGB, and you do not need RGB. I wanted a showpiece for my living room. I can have it doing multiple colors, or I can have it set on one color, but when people come over, it's kind of like the focal point. The fan is also supported by Intel, so it was an easy choice when it came to picking the fan. For the 2 smaller fans, we went with Arctic's F8 PWMs, and they fit perfectly in the case, and it helps keep the case nice and cool, especially because with a NAS, it is on all the time. Now the SanDisk 64GB Cruiser Fit is where we are holding our operating system. We wanted something nice and low profile because our motherboard does not have a USB port on it, so we didn't really want it sticking out like a sore thumb, so this was perfect. And that is my budget NAS build, guys. If you're interested in any of these parts, I'm going to have them all linked down below, as well as my kit page, so be sure to check them out there. Now I've done a 4K video editing PC. Now I'm doing my NAS build. I have a couple other ones I want to get out there for you. Now if you have any tech suggestions, if you've built a NAS, what did you do differently than what I did? Comment all that down below. Now don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. I'm Dina, and I'll catch y'all next time.